Chapter 7 Pieces are moving. On board his personal flagship the Iron Will, one captain and Adu Governor Wilhaf Tarkin was not amused. He was never amused. Always serious. Always striving forward and striking down anyone who stands in his way. He was ambitious like that. Like his family members before him serving as governors and senators before him for his home planet. It was one of the many things his family taught him. When growing up on such a world such as Adu in order to be considered strong. He had been taught how to survive and fight against the harsh wilderness of his own world and proven himself worthy of the name Tarkin. To be ruthless and ambitious. To destroy your enemies no matter what. Even when they neither had the means or the strength to oppose you. To never give them a means to rise up. To never gather strength. To never know what it feels like to be truly free from your control. For control was everything. To have a strong iron fist wrapped around the throat of your world, your system, and the very galaxy itself before squeezing the life out of it until all opposition fell into line. That was the ultimate ambition. The ultimate form of ruthlessness. It was Tarkin's vision to see such a moment in time where all things in the universe bowed to a central power. A central power that decided the fate of all and none had the might or right to oppose it in any shape or form. And Tarkin himself among the elite of this central power, if not the central power. To rise above his current station to the point where no one could do anything except breathe without his permission. But alas, such a dream was becoming more and more a dream over reality. The Republic was launching one campaign after another against the Separatists with GD generals now leading the clone army. Against them. An already expensive endeavor, but one Tarkin saw being a very much needed necessity, given the number of battle droids the Separatists were producing every day. Clones required time to grow, to be trained, conditioned, and ultimately tested before being sent out for their assignments. As for battle droids, they simply required being put together by machines, and came off an assembly line after having their programming installed. The only reason the droids didn't overrun the Republic was because the clones the Republic had now could take down well over 1,000 of them for every 10 clones that died. Add to the fact that GD generals were doing everything in their power to destroy said battle droids by the freighter full also helped too. But even still, it was proving to feel like a stalemate at times. The Separatists had quite a few skilled generals in their corner too. One of them being the male Kalish general, who went by the name Grievous. A brilliant tactician given his years fighting the Hawk as the Kalish should call them. Skilled within the use of firing a blaster rifle and with swords for close quarter combat. There was also another Kalish, a female counterpart to Grievous, calling herself General Calamitous, among their ranks, and was set to match even GD themselves in the way of sword combat. The deadly warrior woman had fought and killed quite a few GD knights alongside her male counterpart, while taking the lightsabers of the most skilled of their kills as trophies. As for the lightsabers of the slain GD, who were poor at fighting, they were returned to the GD temple, and stained in the blood of their former users. A reminder and message by the Kalish to the GD for their enemies to send better warriors against them. Add to the assassins the Separatists were employing at cost the Republic officers capable of leading troops into battle didn't help either. There were even rumors of some GD who left the order and joined the Separatists and were teaching, if not forming a new order of Force users somewhere in the Outer Rim. And finally, there was the Sith Lord leading the military campaigns against the Republic. Darth Vader. Supreme Commander of the Confederacy Army. Darth Vader thought Tarkin with a scowl forming further on his face while he sat in his office in his ship while reading over reports of the man's exploits. The Sith Lord had been the biggest thorn in the side of the Republic, GD, and Chancellor Palpatine, after the former GD now turned Separatists leader Count Dooku, had named the man Supreme Commander of their army. Many GD, both knights and masters, had gone against him in battle, both in space and the ground. They were either bested by the Sith Lord personally in battle or by the very strategies he implemented to show just how incompetent the GD and Republic as a whole were against him. If only there was some way to best him. But how? It was bad enough the man was a skilled tactician, but the Sith Lord seemed to have the power to change the course of any battle when in it. Tarkin himself had, to his shame, lost several such battles when fighting a Separatist fleet in space, and to make matters even worse when he had the superior number of ships. Victory was practically assured in those battles until Vader himself came in with a handful of ships, plus his personal fighter, and decimated the fleet Tarkin commanded. The Chancellor had not been pleased. Twice Tarkin was denied promotion in rank as a result of his failures, and was threatened 3 times with demotion if he wasn't careful. That was 4 months ago when Vader had won his 3rd victory over. A beeping sound on his terminal interrupted Tarkin's thoughts, and he frowned since the Eriadu native had given orders to his men, all of them from Eriadu, to not be disturbed. That was another problem. Recently, as his ship was having a wide variety of problems, and it was upsetting to say the least. It was the main reason he was in his office to vent silently at what was happening with his ship and his small task force-size fleet. He had been given to launch an expedition to the Outer Rim. Protocol and maintenance droids were malfunctioning, crewmen were either becoming ill and late for work, or they were simply not on the ship anymore. Already his ship was now running at only half strength, with many of the internal systems having issue in terms of glitches or malfunctions no one could explain. And those who could possibly fix the issues were either ill or missing. It was humiliating in Tarkin's mind. 3 times, he commanded a massive Republic fleet capable of attacking any separatist planet and crushing them with ease. And now he was reduced to a small task force expedition to scout for said planets, but not engage them. It might as well have been a demotion in all but name. Another beeping sound interrupted his thoughts once more. What? I specifically commanded to not be disturbed right now, exclaimed Tarkin, as jammed his finger harshly on the intercom of his desk to talk to whoever was remotely stupid enough to contact him of all times. My apologies, Captain Tarkin, but your only remaining protocol droid on the ship is requesting to speak with you immediately. It apparently insists on the matter, as this is in regards to a diagnostic test. The droid was running on the ship's systems, and might have found an answer to the problem, said the man who Tarkin recognized as one of his few remaining officers not missing or ill on the ship. Did you inform the clearly incompetent droid that I didn't wish to be disturbed? Asked Tarkin, with his tone being cold enough to rival Hoth. I did, sir. But the damn droid seems to think it has the answer, and you will want to hear the news. It apparently won't take no for an answer, despite my numerous attempts to tell it otherwise, said the officer on the intercom, with his voice sounding irritated at being harassed by the mentioned droid. Fine. Send it in. Maybe I can get some good news for once, answered Tarkin before he let out a sigh. Sure enough, the door to his office opened with the protocol droid of lime green color and slightly odd design walking into the room. It was one Tarkin had seen in passing and doing maintenance around the ship from time to time when not serving food or drinks to the rest of the crew. Out of all the protocol and maintenance droids on his flagship prior to malfunctioning, this one was clearly the most competent one here. It just had an odd way of speaking. Statement. Master, I have gone over the system's malfunctioning on the ship with a very suitable diagnostic test. From what my analysis has been able to determine, your ship has been suffering from a computer virus designed to cause random systematic problems at random points in time. Conclusion. The only way this virus could have been put in the system is if someone uploaded it into the primary computer with the proper access codes and voice commands to bypass the voice recognition security system, said the protocol droid. Sabotage, said Tarkin furiously at this news. One of his own men he personally handpicked from Eriadu was a spy and traitor on his ship. The insolence of it all. Answer. You are correct, Master. I have concluded whoever did this was an influential officer on your ship. Suspicious query. Do you think it was multiple saboteurs, Master? Given how so many on the ship are missing? Asked the protocol droid curiously, while Tarkin himself narrowed his eyes at the thought. Possibly. Until now, I wouldn't even think of it. But seeing how so many of my crew are either supposedly ill or missing, I am starting to believe that my entire ship is no longer secure. Maybe even the entire fleet I have with me, said Tarkin, while the protocol droid gave an almost invisible nod. Concerned statement. Master, if what you say is true, it would be prudent to send out a discreet distress signal back to Coruscant to request some measure of assistance, offered the protocol droid while Tarkin looked at it like the damn thing just suggested fighting for the separatists. Absolutely not. I have already been disgraced too much already during this war. If I sent out a distress signal now over something like this, it would only bring me further shame to me. Not only to myself, but the Tarkin name. I might as well die at this point in order to prevent further embarrassment, exclaimed Tarkin angrily while standing up from his chair and glaring at the protocol droid, only to frown in confusion when the said droid's eyes glowed for a moment. Giddy statement. You cannot imagine how happy I am to hear that coming from a meatbag like yourself, said the protocol droid with the lime green coloring shifted to a rusty orange that made Tarkin's eyes widen. HK-47. Darth Vader's prized assassin droid and another fear entity among the Separatists' own forces. How did he not notice it sooner? Many wondered why Darth Vader didn't mass-produce the droid, given its skills in killing people so effectively. From what Republic spies and intelligence were able to determine, the droid itself refused to let anyone or anything duplicate him in any sense of the word. It preferred to be unique among all other droids in the galaxy, with there being no room for copies, duplicates, or crude imitations of its grand splendor. To have no equal among the profession, whether they were droids or organics, with Vader respecting HK-47's wishes on the matter. You did this to me. You sabotaged the systems on my ship. You destroyed all of the other protocol and maintenance droids. And you no doubt poisoned half my officers while killed the other half before disposing of the bodies, exclaimed Tarkin furiously while sensing the droid was quite smug about it. Proud statement. Correct, you pompous meatbag. I have done all these things and much more. Soon, you and the rest of your meatbag soldiers will be particles and space dust to never see another planet ever again. Additional statement. I truly do love my job, said HK-47 before pulled out a blaster rifle hidden in a secret compartment of his body, and blasted Tarkin right in the chest with enough force behind it to knock the man back into his chair before slumping against it. As for HK, he was somewhat disappointed at how much effort it took to get to this point in killing his intended target. Thanks to Vader's slicer techs and spies on Coruscant, the droid was able to be assigned to the Iron Will without anyone realizing the manifest was an error regarding the number of protocol droids the ship should have on board. Not too surprising since everyone was focused more on battle droids over protocol droids. Not that HK wasn't scanned by security like the other droids for good measure, but the fact they didn't detect anything out of the ordinary, or the fact the troopers scanning him did not look very interested in their job further proved his assumption correct. If you didn't look like a battle droid, the troopers around you didn't give two credits what you did so long as they believed you weren't armed. So with that in mind, HK used his status as a protocol droid to infiltrate the ship in order to assassinate Tarkin, per his master's orders. Darth Vader made it quite clear that Tarkin was to be killed on his own ship, but the only plausible explanation behind his death were his crew, and the other ships in the task force being assigned to the Outer Rim, had pulled a mutiny, with the end result being the destruction of the entire task force fleet with no survivors. A distress signal would of course be activated, but by the time any such ships from the Republic came, the task force would be destroyed by a well-timed explosion from power bombs planted in key areas of each ship. Anyone on each ship who could have disarmed, or alerted Tarkin of these things were either killed or discreetly, yet badly poisoned via their food and drinks. HK hated to admit it, but the Nagri were very good at their job when it came to using the ancient art of infiltration and killing their own targets without being detected. Not as good as HK himself in his processor, but pretty damn close. They had been in the other ships of the small fleet Tarkin had been assigned to help speed things along, since HK couldn't leave his primary target ship unless necessary, and without raising suspicion. As for the escape route, there was a shuttle on the Iron Will that could take the droid and the Nagri off each ships before the bombs went off. Afterwards, they would travel to a temporary separatists outpost in this sector of space, emphasis on the temporary, and get on another ship where they would rendezvous with the Sith Lord's fleet. All in all, a job well done. Coruscant Chancellor's office. Palpatine was in a foul mood. Very foul. His control over his emotions was slipping with each passing day. He could feel it. The dark side was clawing viciously at his very self-control, mocking him at every turn. He needed to vent, to unleash his hatred, to unleash the real him, to remove the shackles of the benevolent Chancellor Palpatine and reveal the real entity behind the false persona that was Darth Sidious. But he couldn't. At least not yet. No. The time was not right. The GD Order were hunting for any and all Sith in the galaxy. The Senate itself was mostly anti-Sith and pro-GD at this point. The plan to turn public opinion of the GD within the Senate and the galaxy as a whole into one filled with negativity was imploding as a result. The GD themselves were acting selfless for the most part, sans a few of the more emotionless GD out on the field of battle. However, those like Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his former apprentice now Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker were keeping the opinion of the Jedi Order strong. For the most part. Ironic, since Palpatine had wanted to turn Anakin into a Sith Lord one day and bring the view of the Jedi through him into the negative side of things. And even more strange was, instead of Anakin coming to him when seeking advice, Obi-Wan Kenobi did in his place. The now well-respected Jedi Master of the Order had some clear resentment of how Qui-Gon had favored young Anakin Skywalker during the boys' training. A resentment which was actually shared by some Jedi Masters within the Order, who were ultimately afraid of the prophecy surrounding the young Jedi Knight. Something Palpatine secretly nurtured. During conversations with Kenobi, whether in passing about politics or the war itself. The simple fact Obi-Wan Kenobi never realized that Sidious had brought up Anakin and Qui-Gon during nearly every single one of their conversations to provoke such a thing, just proved the Jedi were truly lying beyond even his wildest expectations. The chosen one who was said to bring about the true end of the Sith and bring balance to the Force. That was what the ancient prophecy said. But was balance? True balance? The Jedi embraced the light side and the Sith embraced the dark side. One side could not be more powerful over the other. Not forever. With every dawn, there was a dusk. With the rising of the sun, there must also be a setting of it for the night and darkness that comes. The Jedi wanted their place in the sun to last. No. That wasn't accurate. They wanted the sun and the light they basked in to stay in the sky forever. Never to set. Never to let the darkness set in and take control. They were fools in Sidious's mind. Fighting such an inevitable outcome was like trying to fight the tidal waves of Camino during a storm, while in a small poorly crafted wooden boat. It was as if the Jedi were fighting the Force itself. Fighting its will. Its command. Its desire. Granted, Sidious had been doing that on his own, even when learning from Plagueis about the Force, and how it did not take usurping its will lightly. Sidious knew from what happened during his own experiences that the Force countered every move made against it. Each defeat was costly, almost exposing Sidious and even Plagueis on numerous occasions for the moves made against it. After Sidious had slain his master, the Sith Lord felt it was best to keep his usurping of the Force to a minimum, since the Jedi Order were doing plenty of that for both sides, with the way they handled things. Why make the Force his enemy when it could become Sidious's involuntarily ally? Though there are times I suspect the Force is only giving me hollow victories, thought Sidious, while receiving the report of Tarkin's demise through treachery from his own people from Iriadu. He had hoped Tarkin's expedition into the Outer Rim with the task force would help in secretly finding the infamous and legendary moving world known as Anamaseket. He had given Tarkin 3 large fleets and had them sent to the Outer Rim to not only fight the Separatists, but to find the moving planet rumored to be in each sector Tarkin had been assigned. Only for Darth Vader to destroy all 3 fleets given to Tarkin when the proud fool had engaged the supposedly weaker enemy fleets in battle. It was actually a shame the man wasn't interested in being his apprentice. Sidious could have taught the man a thing or two about plans and thinking ahead. But given how Vader was already rivaling him in power, it was best not to make such an offer. For one thing, Sidious knew Vader would never accept becoming his apprentice, due to how the man loathed him for some unknown reason. And the second, Sidious had a strong feeling that if Vader accepted, the man would work quickly to kill him to follow the rule of 2 Purds requirements. It was bad enough the man had altered the intended outcome years ago on Naboo, but now he was alternating the outcome of the Clone Wars and the grand plan as a whole. Speaking of Naboo, his own successor as its senator and representative in the Republic Senate had left the Republic to form an independent coalition of neutral planets. Neutral. Thousands of planets, some key to the victory or defeat for either side of the war, were all trying to stay out of the war. The fact the woman in question was a representative of his home planet made things worse, since some senators in the Republic felt he could not act as the Supreme Chancellor due to such an action by Amidala. They questioned his ability to run the Republic and be its Supreme Chancellor while the war raged on. His political power base in the Senate as Palpatine was weakened considerably, and even his Sith Lord form Darth Sidious had felt the blow too. The Sith Lord made a mental note to have Amidala arrested and tortured for that move after the Republic was turned into the Empire. A beep on his desk intercom system brought him back to the present. "Sorry to bother you, Chancellor, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is here to see you," said the aide to the Chancellor. "Thank you." Send him in, replied Palpatine while using those few minutes it took the GD to get to his office, and compass himself to become his friendly Chancellor persona. Chancellor, said Obi-Wan politely while Sidious gave him a gentle smile. Master Kenobi, I do appreciate your visit to my office. The strains of politics these days can be quite the burden, and the need for conversations unrelated to such things are most welcome, said Palpatine. Well, Obi-Wan smiled back. Thank you, Chancellor. Though I'm afraid my conversation with you here today revolves more around the war and the idea for a campaign against the Separatists, said Obi-Wan, while Palpatine looked somewhat interested. By all means, share your idea with me, Master Kenobi. I look forward to hearing about it, said Palpatine, knowing he could either use the GD's plan to kill more of the Order, if it was a promising one, or use the campaign to weaken Vader. Either way, Sidious was going to benefit no matter what. The Devastator orbiting Makana sometime later. Sir, I detected a large Republic fleet headed our way, said a B-2 super battle droid. As I thought they would. No doubt trying to shut down Shadow Feed. It only took them a little longer than expected, said Vader, while his forces in space were in position to help repel the enemy. Sir, calm. Chatter from the other side indicates that General Kenobi along with General Plo Koon are the generals leading the charge, said a communication droid designed to intercept enemy communications. Kenobi, inform Sifo Dyas and proceed with the operation. Do not kill GD Master Plo Koon. Disable his starfighter if you can and capture him alive. As for Kenobi, I will deal with him myself on the planet's surface, said Vader before leaving the ship, and the order went out to his forces. Republic cruiser the Perseverance. He's here. I can sense him, said Obi-Wan firmly with a sense of unease in his heart. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Obi-Wan? Darth Vader has fought and killed countless GD so far during this war. Many have fallen by his blade already, and few have been spared by his hand, warned Plo Koon, while he had heard the stories of the Sith Lord besting some of their very best masters in lightsaber combat. Someone has to fight him. Besides, the planet has been transmitting all of the Separatists' propaganda throughout the galaxy. If we don't shut it down now, the Republic will lose more key worlds to them. We already lost quite a few mid-rim worlds, and half the outer rim is already under their control, because they prey on the desperate lawless places for recruitment, with false promises of a better life under the Sith Lord's rule, said Obi-Wan bitterly, since several worlds had left the Republic for this confederacy of independent systems, or chose to be neutral with the other delegation, former Senator Padme Amidala had created. The simple fact that this woman in Naboo broke away from the Republic had been all the more devastating, if slightly justified. Many could see why she did it. The Republic Senate had done little to aid her, until solid proof was presented to them of the invasion by the Trade Federation. The Senate had shown multiple signs of incompetence, corruption, greed, and caring only for themselves, despite what a few of the senators tried to do to the contrary. Add the fact the Shadow Feed, which they just learned about recently, was broadcasting countless incriminating things about many Republic senators, only made the Republic itself look the part of the villain. Even more in all of this, the GD did what they could to save the principles, if not the spirit of the Republic, but the Separatists were relentless, and their actions had caused quite a few promising GD to suddenly leave the Order. Sifo Dyas, Quinlan Vos, Airsoft E, Neha Halcyon, Hong Krell and Sor Bulk, the two former GD meeting their ends when the respective shuttles they were on had exploded as each one was leaving Coruscant unknowingly at the hands of HK-47. At the same time, Anakin Skywalker was becoming quite popular among the younger and more impressionable GD learning at the temple. His exploits with Qui-Gon Jinn had made for some GD Padawans among the Order to emulate him or his GD master. It had been upsetting to Obi-Wan to see such a thing happen. Even more so when Master Yoda and some of the other GD Council members doing nothing to stop it. Granted, the two GD had achieved the most victories over the Separatists, but Obi-Wan felt it was not right for such impressionable future GD to think they should follow their way of thinking. Anakin had been recently aiding the Republic on the planet Jabim with Qui-Gon. Reports were sketchy at the time, but it seemed that even the Separatists cared little for the leader of the Jabim nationalists, Alto Stratus. The man's hatred for GD was vocal, practically yelling at the top of his lungs. He had denounced the Republic, the GD, and ultimately demanded anyone from that side suffer painful agonizing, even slow torturous deaths. A man consumed by his hatred and drowning in the madness of his own pain for what his people went through, while pinning the blame on others who had nothing to do with it. Hence why there was a rumor of the crazed man being shot in the back of the head by HK-47 itself, before he was able to successfully kill GD Master Norcuna. When a barely conscious GD Master Norcuna asked the droid why it killed the man, but spared him instead when it was walking away, HK just stopped to look at the man for a moment before continued walking through the ring, all without saying a word. Which was something that terrified the GD Master since he couldn't fathom the reason behind it. At the same time, former GD Knight, in the eyes of the GD Order, Kentucky Narak was there with his former apprentice Asajj Ventress, with a fleet of ships coming to provide more support for the Confederacy. From what Obi-Wan had glimpsed of the report, the Republic had lost the planet to them, with the populace quite happy about it. Though they loathed the idea of GD being on the other side, it was clear that the Confederacy were willing to provide them with support one way or another. All the people of Jabim had to do was tolerate the Confederacy's GD while the two were there. As for the defeated Republic forces, they were allowed to retreat with what wounded and survivors they had left, further showing the Confederacy was not filled with the monsters the Republic claimed they held within their ranks. Obi-Wan felt this was all done by Vader to turn the galaxy not only against the GD, but the Republic as a whole. To attack the Republic on multiple fronts from within and from without, to the point where the Galactic government ultimately collapsed. Be mindful of your feelings, Obi-Wan. They can betray you, warned Plo Koon, while his fellow GD Master frowned slightly. My feelings are my own, Master Koon. If I feel anything right now, it is a need to fight the Sith Lord in front of us, and ultimately bring him to justice, said Obi-Wan while their fleet began the attack. Let us hope your need doesn't blind you to the real goal of this campaign, said Master Plo Koon, who was having secret reservations about this mission. While he agreed it had to be done, the GD Master felt Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the right GD Master to assist with the campaign. The man was still too young despite being a well-experienced GD Master in his own right. However, Master Koon felt there was a small yet noticeable grudge Kenobi held against the Sith Lord. As such, the Kaldor GD had actually suggested a more experienced lightsaber duelist confront Vader. While various masters like Mace Windu, Eat Koth, or Kit Fisto were nominated, ultimately Obi-Wan Kenobi was still chosen with his insistence he could handle the campaign. It won't, said Obi-Wan while both men headed for their fighters. Plo Koon would handle the space battle, while Obi-Wan would lead the ground forces. Makana sometime later. Blaster fire and explosions rocked the planet as droids fought against clones, with neither side giving ground. At Tess were blasting spider droid tanks. Rockets fired from several B-2 super battle droid damaged the legs of said AT-T and caused it to sway off balance before hitting the nearest AT-T to its right. The end result was knocking the second AT-T with enough for it to land on its side, with the underbelly exposed. Artillery fired at it and caused both vehicles to explode. HK moved discreetly around to the side of the enemy's position. Infiltrate from behind if necessary. Blow up all of their supplies and weapons, ordered Vader, while HK nodded before activating his new cloaking system he obtained through the black market, where they just so happened to have personal cloaking devices dated back to his old time. A few modifications to make it compatible with more modernized systems, and HK was good to go for sneaking into places to cause all sorts of chaos for the enemy. GD statement. Oh Master, I do enjoy the tasks I am given by you. Rest assured, the meatbags on the other side will soon die painful deaths. My only regret is most of them will never know it was by these life-crushing hands, remarked HK-47 before he was gone from the Sith Lord's sight. We have just received a report of Obi-Wan Kenobi on a speeder bike, with 3 squads moving due west, in an attempt to strike at our blind spot, said the tactical commander droid, while Vader smirked. Ah yes. Our supposed blind spot. Alert the snipers in that area. Kill all of the clones, but disable Kenobi's ride with a clean shot. With him on foot, I can deal with him myself, said Vader before he left the room to prepare for his fight with his former, in another life, master. GD Temple at the moment. This is worse than we first thought, said Mace Windu while he, Eat Koth, and Yoda were looking over various records regarding past GD assignments going back as 50 years. And the results were not promising. How could we have missed this? Not only have the consular class GD been unusually high, but they have been dealing with assignments not meant for them from the start. I saw at least 200 of them meant for Guardians and should have been assigned by Guardians. Instead, I'm seeing consular-class GD assigning missions to Guardians or young GD, with the potential to become Guardians, and with none of the preparations one requires for them, said Eth Koth, seeing some of the asexual or less emotional GD consular GD masters, assigning certain deep cover assignments regarding infiltration of the gang, a criminal organization. While the infiltration assignments themselves didn't bother the Zabrak per se, it was the fact those who generally assigned them in terms of doing the work that was put into question. After carefully reviewing those questionable infiltration assignments, Eth saw the GD consular assigning these missions felt they could only be done successfully with maximum efficiency by female GD. And adding how they had to make it happen was another disturbing trend. It seemed the female GD had to pose as slaves, prisoners of gangs and criminal organizations willing to sell the female slaves on the black market, knowing they would fetch a fine price. The more exotic they looked, the more credits were possible to obtain, and the more profit these criminal organizations made. All of them drugged or sedated to keep the many of the slaves from being unruly when it was time to auction them off. While most of these assignments had fortunately, thank the Force, gone off without any real incident, the GD masters in the room saw there was quite a percentage where they did not go well. Female GD had shock and slave collars on them when detained by the organization, with some being tortured for fun by the criminals. Others never made it to the slave auctions as the slave traders felt some of their product was too valuable to sell and sampled some of the women they had in stock. And when the assignments were over, regardless of the outcome, the GD consular who handed them off simply marked them either a success or failure. No thought to how the female GD in question should see a mind healer or some other form of therapy to cope with what they went through or experienced. In short, the GD consulars were not qualified to hand out these assignments, much less deal with the aftermath of them. Their own line of thought in terms of how their species would think and their version of GD principles did not make them qualified. So how did this happen? Even with our increase in Guardians prior to the Clone Wars, it's not enough to help us fight against the Separatists. Some of the GD consulars feel nothing for the loss of our brothers and sisters who fell to the enemy. Some have been outspoken in fighting in the war and refuse to help in any way, said Eth Koth, who doesn't understand why some of his fellow GD seemed so detached and acting like it didn't matter if they fought or not. It was like lives as whole in this world didn't matter, regardless if someone transformed into the Force or not. It was as if these particular GD didn't care about anything except what they could feel through the Force, and everything else was insignificant. While Eth believed in a better understanding of the Force, he also believed in enjoying life around you and the now too. Nothing outrageous, mind you, but there was nothing wrong to go out to see a sport or having a favorite drink with a friend from time to time. But these GD who took up the majority of the consular class greatly disturbed him in a way he didn't think possible. Some even called for the GD as a whole to not participate in the war. Just let events play out was their reasoning, and let the GD order stand tall where all other things faded into dust. Whether the storm of war, no matter the outcome, the GD order would not perish in the end. That had been their reasoning, and it disturbed the Zabrak greatly to think such GD existed within the order without him seeing it until now. Was he that blind before today? Even worse, if that were possible, Master Yoda himself had not seen it until recently when Eth had brought this to his attention. Mace Windu had been brought into it too after his mission on Dantooine had been victorious, if just barely. I'm afraid it's even worse. I pulled this from our temple's communication logs, said Mace, while Eth and Master Yoda both frowned in shock and horror. This is a distress call from Jabim. It was made by Knight Skywalker nearly a week ago. He requested reinforcements to battle the Separatists and Jabim nationalists, who were slowly overpowering the Republic troops he and the other GD had under their command. And yet, no attempt was made to alert the Supreme Chancellor or even other members of the GD Council about this, remarked Eth. Worriedly, since such damaging news would hurt the reputation of the GD even more. To not inform the Supreme Chancellor was one thing, but to let your fellow GD along with their troops die without sending aid was practically criminal. It didn't matter if the troops were clones. The clones themselves were still people despite what a few GD in the Order thought or felt on the issue. Life was life. You didn't shun it or ignore it simply for how it was brought into the world. You had to understand it, observe it, study it, but to also treat such life with respect all the same. Who was the GD monitoring communications on that day? Asked Eth curiously. It doesn't say. The names for that day were blanked out. All of them. Either one of the GD assigned to the communication terminal did it, or this was done by someone else in GD Order working with him, or her. Someone who wanted Skywalker dead. Someone, or possible a group of GD who feared the prophecy, answered Mace while sighing, since he didn't think the fracture within the GD Order was this deep. Informed of this, Skywalker must not be told. Feel betrayed, he will. Lose his faith and loyalty to the GD Order, will happen, commented Yoda while wondering who else in the GD Temple knew about this. Aside from themselves. Skywalker's faith in the Order isn't considered to be strong either. With the way some of the Masters acted toward him during his time growing up here was not entirely pleasant. Sometimes I think he stays. Only due to Master Qui-Gon, but we know the man won't live forever. Sadly, his age is catching up to him now, despite the Force picking up the slack in some areas. However, if this war does go on for another couple more years, I fear we may have to take him off the front lines, commented Mace, while having seen some of it himself, and felt a form of conflict about it. While GD Masters who taught younglings and Padawans were meant to be strict to some degree, it was on another level with Skywalker. They did everything in their rank and their power to keep the boy from exploring the depths of his power. Not simply to keep him humble, but because the GD in question truly feared his power. His potential. The boy excelled when it came to using the Force, wielding a lightsaber, or doing anything GD related once he put his mind to it. And yet several GD Masters, mostly those of consular class, tried to keep the boy from reaching it one way or another. While Mace was all for control and humility, even he had to admit the GD who were harsh to Anakin went too far with their actions. It won't be easy. Anakin and Qui-Gon might investigate this on their own, or demand to know why reinforcements weren't sent to Jabba. We can't hide this from them, Master Yoda. This is too big, even for us. And if we hide it from them, the backlash will only make things worse, said Mace while sighing, since burying the truth only makes it worse when the truth is unburied later on. I agree with Master Windu on this. Anakin had been able to win the vast majority of his battles against the Separatists. If we lose him for whatever reason, the war will look even more bleaker for us. Not to mention the public will hate us even further if this gets out, said Eth Cloth, while Master Yoda looked hesitant to agree, but in the end had decided they were right. At the very least, being honest with the young GD along with his master about this kind of situation would dull the blow of betrayal they were sure the two would feel from this. Talk with Qui-Gon and Skywalker about this, I will, said Yoda, since he was the only GD at this point that Qui-Gon respected and would listen to right now. The same being for Anakin, but only due to his former master trusting the elderly GD Grandmaster when it came to making the right decisions. There were times when Yoda would have some arguments with Anakin. Nothing too loud or heated, but there were times when Yoda could honestly say he never recalled a time in his many long years of being alive that someone challenged him as Anakin did on various issues. Even Dooku, who was his last true student, had been inclined to listen to his advice and obey when Yoda gave an order. But Anakin was different. He saw the world not through the eyes of someone who grew up in the GD Temple. No. Anakin had seen a darker aspect of the galaxy. One where hate, fear, oppression, and other dark things thrived. As such, his point of view was very different to that of a youngling turned Padawan turned GD Knight, who was raised in the safety of the GD Temple. Anakin had lived in the real galaxy and saw the bitter truth some GD Masters and teachers hid from their students for as long as possible. The truth being that the galaxy had many dark places in it. Places where light did not shine. Could not shine. And in some cases would not shine. Yoda knew the boy wanted to fight all forms of evil. Fix every problem. End every single conflict. Both inside and outside of the Republic. To go beyond the limitations set for the GD Order in terms of only doing more than simply solving the problems within the one galactic government. Not when there was so much injustice in the world. How could the GD Order be a symbol of light when it couldn't even reach beyond the Republic's own borders? Anakin had always been like that growing up in the GD Temple. His desire, his will, and overall belief in ridding the galaxy of evil had been refreshing in some cases, annoying in others. But the principle behind it was nonetheless there, and it reminded Yoda that the GD Order did not answer just to the Republic, despite what some senators thought, but to the galaxy as a whole, to the force that empowered them. The GD Order had been so confident in the Sith being defeated 1,000 years ago that they never thought to be extra thorough to be sure. Didn't try to expand their knowledge of the Force and keep They're up the strength needed should the darkness they assumed was defeated forever was truly gone. And look what happened. They were ignorant for 1,000 years. They were arrogant in the belief no one could challenge the Jedi Order. They had been filled pride for over 1,000 years in the belief they vanquished the Sith, that it had come back in the form of the Sith returning in the form of two Sith. One hiding, one revealed. Yet both were at war with each other. Whether it was due to following different Sith sects, or because it was simply in their nature to hate one another, was anyone's guess. What Yoda did know what the Jedi Order was caught in the middle of this tug-of-war struggle between them, and it didn't help they were the rope those two were tugging on, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. And it also didn't help that the rope was showing signs of coming undone, due to the various fractures the Order itself was currently going through. Wakanda with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi was not having a good day. His ground forces, made up of clones using Jango Fett's genetic template, were on the surface of the planet, fighting and dying against wave after wave of battle droids, while going with a sizable strike force on his speeder bikes to attack the blind spot in Vader's flank. The clone commander he left in charge reported several of the supply depots holding food, medical supplies, and weapons had been destroyed. Guards had been killed silently, most likely by the saboteur, and the communication array to call for resupplies and reinforcements was destroyed. 2. And it only got worse after Obi-Wan realized too little too late that the blind spot behind Vader's flank wasn't really a blind spot at all. It was a fake, a farce, and above all else a trap. One he walked right into with his squad, which had paid the price for it with sniper fire from battle droids, designed to use them with pinpoint accuracy. The only reason Obi-Wan wasn't dead right now was due to the Force saving him at the last moment, and he only landed in a tumbling roll onto the harsh ground. Fortunately, the clone trooper armor he wore helped cushion the fall if only slightly. His speeder bike, like the rest of his unit, was destroyed. Bodies and destroyed speeder bikes were on the ground completely lifeless, scattered everywhere. Mental note: make request to the Republic's military R&D department to make a much softer insulation pad for clone trooper armor, to buffer intense falls or crash landings. Thought a now in pain Obi-Wan Kenobi, struggling to get up, only to freeze when the dark presence of Darth Vader was felt through the Force. It has been some time, Kenobi, said the voice of one Darth Vader, while the Sith Lord was walking casually through the wreckage of the Jedi's destroyed attack squadron. Vader, spat Obi-Wan with anger in his voice. Is that anger I hear in your voice, Kenobi? Not very Jedi-like of you, commented Vader before he was barely 15 feet away from the Jedi. Interesting you would lecture me about being a Jedi. Coming from a Sith Lord, I should feel insulted, said Obi-Wan before standing up fully and ignited his lightsaber. While Sith Lord stood there staring back at him, not even drawing his lightsaber. It was puzzling, and for some reason Obi-Wan felt the Sith Lord was probing his very being. His taint is on you. As I thought it would. Clearly the man is even more desperate for an apprentice than I thought, whispered Vader with narrowed eyes. Taint? What are you talking about? Asked Obi-Wan while getting ready for a fight with Vader. And what is even more pathetic about this situation is you don't even realize it. The Jedi Order has truly become blind in almost all things related to the Force, said Vader before he finally brought out his lightsaber and activating it. Speak plainly, Vader, or prepare to meet your end, said Obi-Wan, while feeling a sense of unease rise in him, despite his attempts to stomp it down. You have eyes, yet do not see. You have ears, yet you do not hear. You can hands, yet you cannot touch. You could feel, yet numb your very being to prevent the sensation of feeling. The Jedi Order is truly a shadow of its former self. The Sith of old are laughing at you from the beyond, said Vader mockingly, knowing it would upset the Jedi in front of him. If there was one thing some Jedi has similar to the Sith, it was pride. Pride in their skills. Pride in their connection to the Force. Pride in their order. It was only fair that said pride be attacked. Ruthlessly. Painfully. Cast down their pride. Cast down their confidence. Cast down their strength. Destroy their very foundation and you have won. Whether it was a single Jedi Master or the entire Jedi Order itself, it didn't matter. The fall of one's pride always came before the actual fall. And it was now time for Obi-Wan to fall. I should have killed you on Naboo all those years ago. I should have rallied the other Jedi when the people were celebrating and attacked with everything we had, said Obi-Wan, while Vader almost looked amused by his words. Almost. You could have tried, Jedi. But we both know it would have failed. The Jedi Order is no longer considered the symbol of peace and justice it once was in ancient history. Many have long since found your order to be weak, decadent, and dying a slow death while it slowly drowns under the sands of time, said Vader before he casually blocked Obi-Wan's sudden rush and slash maneuver before knocking the man back with ease. Says the Sith Lord belonging to an order that turns the act of committing genocide into a sport, exclaimed Obi-Wan before he was met by Vader's own aggressive fighting style that pushed the Jedi Master back on the defensive. And the Jedi don't. Need I remind you what happened on Mandalore? How all those years ago, the Republic's excision campaign against them left the entire system in ruin. Now the various planets around Mandalore are filled with crime, corruption, outlaws, pirates, and criminal organizations which came to fill the power vacuum left behind by your actions. Your brothers and sisters of the Jedi Order slaughtered Mandalorians on those worlds with the Republic fleet sent to break them. And for what? Because they showed signs of regaining their former strength. At least with the Sith Order, we make such genocide quick and to the point. But Jedi, you make it so they die a slow agonizing death while watching and waiting for them to die. So tell me in all honesty, all-wise, all-seeing Master Kenobi, who between our two orders truly makes the act of genocide a sport? Challenged Vader viciously before he elbowed Kenobi in the face, after pushing the man's lightsaber down toward the ground with his own. The Jedi bring peace to planets filled with pain and suffering. The Sith feed off it like a cancer. Obi-Wan shot back while trying to put Vader on the defensive, but soon found the Sith Lord's defense were impervious to his offensive attacks. To Republic planets. To Republic worlds. To Republic cities. But what about the Outer Rim worlds? What about those in the Mid-Rim not part of the Republic? What about the worlds filled with slavery? What about the worlds controlled by the Hutts? What makes the Republic worlds so valuable that you would protect them, but leave alone the worlds where the people need you most? Challenged Vader while Obi-Wan tried to keep his anger under control at the Sith Lord's words, despite truth behind them. In truth, the Jedi Order should be able to go to those worlds in the Mid and Outer Rim in need of their aid. They should be able to go to the worlds controlled by the Hutts and put down the slavery and oppression they were known to embrace due to the profit behind it. Alas, it was not possible. 1,000 ago with the Army of Light the Jedi Order had following the last Jedi-Sith War, it would have been possible. But the Jedi Order felt it was best to disband the Army of Light, to contract, and to regroup to a single center at the heart of the galaxy. To go from fierce warriors and feared enemies of all things lurking within the darkness of space to mere peacekeepers, who acted as the mindless thugs of the Senate, or Chancellor Palpatine's personal police force. Some Jedi had wondered if what happened to them over the last 1,000 years was the wrong choice in both the disbandment of the Army of Light and their decision to seek to expand their knowledge of the Force. Some felt it didn't make sense to do the latter in terms of contracting themselves in pursuit of future knowledge. Without the Sith around to cause chaos in the galaxy, the Jedi Order could have spent their time learning new things and expanding what they already obtained to new levels. Those Jedi who questioned it were all sent on long-term missions away from the Jedi Temple or had simply vanished. No one knew what happened to them, as no one had really bothered to question it. But Vader did. Hence why a certain prison meant to hold rogue Jedi, which was built quite a few centuries ago, had been raided by the Sith Lord. He was surprised by just how many Jedi were locked away. Here, in the first time frame when he was still Jedi General Anakin Skywalker, the prison held very few Jedi in their cells. Vader could only guess that the Jedi here when the Separatists took it over in his first timeline had been killed due to being useless to their sadistic warden. Already too far gone and too broken prior to his machination to be any real sport or challenge to him. Plus, the Jedi in this prison were all locked up in here for quite some time, so knowledge of the outside world was outdated at best. But Vader came along and set them free. Many with stories to tell of how they ended up in the prison designed to hold rogue Jedi. Missions that went bad. Surprise attacks in the middle of the night. Being knocked out from behind. Stun blasts at close range from a blind spot. But the end result was always the same. Betrayal. Betrayal by their fellow Jedi brothers and sisters. And all for questioning the status quo. All because they sensed there was more to the Jedi way and wishing to expand when those who opposed it preferred to contract. The computer logs within the prison's system only validated their stories further. When offered a safe haven to relearn and grow stronger again, the now former Jedi of the Order freed by Vader took it without question. Even now, they were relearning how to be GD again with Dooku himself being their teacher when the man wasn't running the day-to-day operations of the Confederacy. When the man had heard what the GD had done to his own people for years, it had shocked the Count greatly. He wondered if his old master knew of this prison. And, if Yoda did in fact know of it, which Dooku suspected he did given his title of Grand Master, did the old GD know it was holding other GD? Did he know they were locked away because they simply wished things to change within the GD order? Vader knew the Count would wish to have words with Yoda later on during the war as things progressed, and the Sith Lord was going to ensure they did have a nice long talk. But for now, the Sith Lord was dealing with a short-tempered and quite desperate GD Master trying to fight for survival. A fight the GD was losing. Whatever skills Obi-Wan had learned since his first fight with Vader, it was not enough to best the Sith Lord in battle. The man trained and it showed on many levels. But Vader had been eating, sleeping, and breathing war in more way than one. With experience now literally covering 2 lives, the Sith Lord was many years beyond Kenobi, and any level of training the man performed on a semi-daily basis. It also didn't help that Qui-Gon's new star pupil Anakin Skywalker was accelerating in the field of combat during the Clone Wars. Thanks to Vader manipulating the war instead of Sidious, planets which were attacked many months, if not years into the war the first time around were fought during different times. Sidious had easily controlled the Clone Wars on the Republic side of things, while Dooku controlled the Sith through his position in making major moves with Sidious's secret approval the first time around. With both Sith Lords plotting the overall war together, they controlled which pieces on the board went where and what was the best outcome of each battle. All without anyone seeing or even knowing the cold bitter truth until Sidious's enemies realized it too little too late. But Sidious wasn't in control. At least, not the Confederacy's side of things. For his plots and schemes, the older Sith was not a true strategist without the Force as his ally. And right now, the Force was not Sidious's ally. As a result, Vader was throwing the entire plan Sidious had for the Clone Wars right out the window, right out into space, and right into a black hole. Not to mention Vader's own history of the Clone Wars when fighting in it from the previous timeline, as Anakin Skywalker allowed him to make his own moves before Sidious could stop the rival Sith Lord. And because of those machinations and throwing Sidious's own plans out the window, Anakin Skywalker had become a much better GD for it. Qui-Gon had been just the GD master the boy needed growing up to guide him despite many GD masters frowning at how things were going with his potential thriving. By the end of the Clone Wars, Vader would see to it the boy turned man, and GD Knight was ready to fulfill his destiny. And this time around, neither the GD Order nor Sidious would stand in their way of seeing it come out correctly. And what about this war you started? How many lives have been lost because of your Order's machinations in the galaxy? Challenged Obi-Wan before he had his lightsaber knocked away to the side, barely able to hold onto it, and kicked hard right in the chest. Enough. You are beaten. It is useless to resist. Do not let your pride as a GD destroy you as so many other GD did when facing me, said Vader, since he had slain quite a few GD in battle while sparing others he knew the Force wanted alive for the future. Most of the GD he fought were of the consular class GD. They had been so arrogant in their beliefs of being superior, seeing into the Force where others could not, believing that fighting on the front lines or the war itself was barbaric, and sent the clones to do the fighting for them. All the while they sat back safely at the command post surrounded by multiple defense and guiding the clone troopers through strategy. But Vader had bested them all. He tore through their strategies, torn down their superior defenses, their clones troopers, their ability to use the Force, lightsaber fighting, which any low-level Padawan or skilled GD Knight could best. Sat really. Grievous had hoped to fight skilled Guardian class. They all fought like true warriors against him, something the Kalish respected. Which was why he kept the lightsabers of those he killed as mementos to remind himself of them. Not out of hatred or dislike for the GD he killed, but out of respect for them as warriors. The GD he fought that displeased him, however, they did not meet their end well. They were the real scum of the galaxy. The kind that looked at warriors like him and Vader himself with contempt in their eyes. Those GD called them barbarians, brutes, lovers of violence, rabid animals who should be chained, imprisoned, or possibly killed. What did they know? Who were they to judge? They stood in their tall tower, staring down at the people, always judging, and always acting like their way was the right way. Such pride-filled arrogance. Vader, Grievous, HK-47, and others like them had taken great pleasure in destroying those arrogant GD and those like them in this war. Like Vader was doing now with Kenobi. The GD, it didn't help the man was on the ground, on his back, crawling away from Vader with one elbow and leg, and the other arm wielding his lightsaber, trying to slice into the Sith Lord, while attempting to not accidentally slice his own limbs off. Such a pathetic GD you have become since our last encounter, Kenobi. How you ever attained the title of GD Master is beyond even my understanding. You are no master. You are not even worthy of being a knight. Even the title of Padawan would be tainted if you were placed once again in that position, mocked Vader, while occasionally blocking the lightsaber swing made by Kenobi. I will not yield. I will fight to the bitter end. For I am a GD. Stated Obi-Wan while his bruised and bloody body ached from the hits Vader had delivered to him. Such bravado. Such defiance. If you weren't so weak, I might have believed you. But we both know you are far from being a true GD. You are an embarrassment to the GD order of old. Add to the fact he has latched himself onto you makes it all the more imperative your life end here, said Vader before he finally had enough of Kenobi's random attempts to hit him, and used the Force to yank the GD's lightsaber out of his hands. Funny how things played out. All they needed was a river of lava, poisonous ash, and one of them losing 3 out of 4 limbs to recreate their battle on Mustafar. Maybe one of them catching on fire and burning too near death too. Alas, they did not have time for role reversals and recreations of another lifetime. There were enemies on opposing sides of a war after all. It doesn't matter how many GD you strike down Vader. Sooner or later, we will end the Separatists, and you'll roll over it. My only regret is making sure your secret control was a short one, said Obi-Wan with Vader narrowing his eyes on him. Contrary to your own naive beliefs, Count Dooku is not the puppet you think he is when it comes to running the Confederacy. He has seen the corruption in the Republic for what it truly is and has decided to do something about it, said Vader while Obi-Wan grit his teeth. Through your manipulations, countered Obi-Wan while Vader did not look amused by it. Hardly. Well, it is true I met with Dooku to form a second galactic government free from corruption. He only agreed after I revealed certain truths to him, said Vader, as he saw no reason to deny partnering up with Dooku to form the Confederacy. What truths? Asked Obi-Wan in the hopes of getting Vader to reveal more of his plans, and find a way to escape to report it to the GD Council. Truths you could not begin to comprehend. And given his presence is on you like a foul stench, it's all the more reason to end you, said Vader with Obi-Wan gritting his teeth. You mentioned that earlier. You said there was some kind of stain or taint was on me. Who are you talking about? Demanded Obi-Wan, while Vader almost seemed amused at this point. Why, the Sith Lord in hiding, of course. Judging from the level of the dark stench I smell on you, he has been in your presence for quite a while. Not that surprising really, replied Vader while Obi-Wan was shocked to hear this. I was in the presence of the hidden Sith, and I didn't even know it. But who was it? I have been around countless beings of all shapes and sizes. Who could the Sith Lord be in the public eye? Thought Obi-Wan in horror, knowing that he had been near, perhaps even talking with the Sith Lord at certain points in time without even realizing it. Do not look too surprised or even hurt by this news, GD. The Sith have long since been able to master the art of hiding in plain sight for nearly 1,000 years. Chances are, you along with other GD in your order have met other Sith Lords in passing without even realizing it, said Vader, while enjoying the look of shock and horror running across Kenobi's face. I don't believe you, said Obi-Wan weakly. And that, GD, is why your order fails. Why your order will fall unless your chosen one is allowed to bring about change to it. Sadly, you will not live to see such a change, said Vader before slicing Obi-Wan's head clean off. Why do I get the feeling you are going to be the death of me? Vader smirked at the memory from his previous life. Despite the fact Kenobi had been right, it did little to numb the satisfaction he felt over getting his revenge twice over. The now dead GD Master had the nerve to not only leave him to burn to death on Mustafar, but had tried to use his son as a weapon against him too. Kenobi didn't even tell his son about his mother. Of all things to deny the boy, it was the memory or knowledge of his mother. And to add additional injury, he conspired with Bail Organa and Master Yoda to use his daughter against him too. Again, another child led by the nose by people claiming to love them to use against the Sith Lord without telling her the truth. Neither of him or Padme. As if she was someone they could write off as insignificant and bury truth about her like it was something horrible that shouldn't see the light of day. Vader was going to enjoy the day when Bail Organa died. Master Yoda too. Those fools would not live to see the new future. They would die with the past. They would die with the stagnation. They would die with the old guard while the new one brought about the desired change the galaxy needed to protect the future darkness that was to come. But first, he had to finish off the remains of Obi-Wan's army. Space above Makana. Jedi Master Plo Koon sensed through the Force that Obi-Wan Kenobi had fallen in battle. Due to the presence of Vader on the planet, it was safe to assume the Sith Lord had been the one responsible for it. From his Jedi starfighter, he ordered the retreat of his forces before more losses could be tallied against them. The defenses of the Separatists were just too strong, and it was clear they were well prepared for an attack. That Vader was defending from the ground, and former Jedi Master Sifo Dyas was also fighting for the Separatists didn't help either. Master Dyas proved to be a formidable tactician and fighter pilot when combating Republic forces. Whether it was against clones or even other Jedi, he could seemingly outfly them all. Just like he was doing today. Master Plo Koon, I was hoping to speak to you before your forces retreated, said Sifo Dyas over the communication line. I'd rather not. I have nothing to say to a former Jedi. Or should I perhaps consider you a dark Jedi? A Sith Lord like Vader? Demanded Plo Koon while Sifo sighed. There is so much about this you do not know about. I learned things that made my faith in the Jedi Order become called into question. I saw things that made me question what it meant to be a Jedi and what the Order had become in the last 1,000 years since the start of the Ruusan formation, said Sifo Dyas, while Jedi Master Plo Koon frowned. And I assume the Sith Lord showed you these supposed things? Questioned Plo Koon with another sigh coming from the former Jedi. Partially. But not in the way you're thinking. Listen, this war is horrible. Neither one of us will deny it. However, I did warn the Jedi Council of the darkness that was coming. I was ignored and I was forced to commission an army of the Republic behind the Jedi Council's back in order us to lead them. But after I was approached by Darth Vader, I was told some horrible truths. Not just about the Republic, but the Jedi Order. At first, I was in denial of the truth. But later on I saw the truth staring me in the face. I could not deny what I was told, what I felt, and what I saw, said Sifo Dyas with sadness in his voice. That made Plo Koon frown further. Can you share some of this information with me? Perhaps, I can bring such information back to the Jedi Order, so we can fix things on our end. If the things you tell me turn out as you claim, returning to the Jedi Order would be an option, old friend, offered Plo Koon, in the hope of turning the former Jedi against the Sith Lord, as a possible spy for the Republic. That's not possible. I am well aware of the Jedi Order's fracturing and is only holding together because of the war. If some of what I revealed to you was revealed to the Jedi Order, if not the galaxy, I believe it would ultimately bring it down to further ruin. All you need to know right now is my decision to fight for the Confederacy, as so there is a Jedi Order left after this war is over, said Sifo Dyas while Plo Koon frowned. You make it sound as if the Jedi Order will fall by the end of the war, remarked Plo Koon in confusion. And was met with a period of silence. If you are not careful, my old friend, it will fall. One word of warning before you depart for Coruscant: do not trust the Chancellor's growing inner circle. None of them are safe and none of them can be trusted with information, said Sifo Dyas before the calm had gone silent. None of them are safe and cannot be trusted. Does that mean one of them is the hidden Sith? Or knows where the hidden Sith is located? Thought Plo Koon before he entered hyperspace with the remains of his fleet and hoped the forces on the ground would be spared to become prisoners. They could somehow make an exchange to get back Makana on the ground sometime later. The final clone trooper fell down onto his back, dead by Vader's lightsaber. His helmet falling off his head, rolling around in a semicircle until it stopped right at the Sith Lord's feet. Looking down, Vader stared at the helmet before looking at the face of the clone he just killed. They had fought bravely, attacking with everything they had from blasters to rockets, and the heavy artillery they had on hand. But, alas, they were no match for HK-47's invisible attacks. Nor could they stop Vader from overpowering all of them, using the Force to send them flying in all directions when he wasn't cutting their bodies down. In the end, none of the clones stood a chance against him or the dark side of the Force. He thought of Rex, Cody, and the other members of the 501st that would one day be part of something grand. Vader always liked the 501st. They were the best. When the first Death Star was destroyed, a Large portion of them were unfortunately lost when the battle station exploded, and the Emperor had already stopped making new clones using Jango Fett's template. Vader did, of course. Just because the Emperor was afraid of relying on them too much didn't mean Vader would in his place. These clones had Mandalorian's blood in their veins. Warrior blood. They were meant for fighting. It was what they were created for, trained for, sent into battles and wars for. Anything and everything that the Empire produced outside of these soldiers were a fraction of what they could do during a fight. And yet the ones fresh out of the tank since before the war started were basically pawns in a game to be sacrificed with those that survived learning how to think. Such a crude way of doing things, but effective when it came to war and combat when the training was already programmed into clones. Trial by fire seemed the best way to bring about their true potential. Even more so since these clones were of Mandalorian's blood. Query. What are your orders, Master? Asked HK-47 after walking up to Vader just in time to see the Sith Lord step on the clone trooper helmet before pushing down with enough force to crush it. Prepare my ship. I have to go seek out a long-term investment. In addition, have Sifo Dyas arrange for a new broadcast for Shadow Feed. The galaxy will once more hear of our victory over the Republic this day and the fall of one of their GD masters. See to it this is sent back to the GD temple using our usual courier contacts. I want the GD to see they have lost yet another blind fool to their already badly fractured order, said Vader before handing over Kenobi's lightsaber to the droid. Mournful statement. It is a shame you won't let me collect lightsaber trophies, Master. I can only imagine that my collection would rival, if not surpass that of General Grievous and General Calamitous put together. Not to mention the kill count, said HK-47 while Vader glanced at him. Those two take trophies of the warriors they killed because those were warriors deemed worthy of being called as such. You would just take trophies simply because they were there, said Vader, while HK-47's eyes glowed for a second. Quick unrepentant answer. True, said HK-47 before he walked away to carry out his orders and tossing the dead GD's weapon around in the air. Vader only shook his head. That fiendish droid was indeed one worthy of a Sith Lord.